Good evening, this is Agenda Awani with me, Ibrahim Sani. We have been reading up on the reports on the rejuvenation process of the Subang Airport. And of course, this comes on the news of WCT Holdings trying to move ahead with the purchase of this particular airport. And while we don't know the particular details arriving from this particular deal, we also want to understand a little bit better about the structure of it, what it is now, and how we can move ahead in terms of trying to rejuvenate this particular airport. The Sultan Abdul Aziz Shah Airport, or the Subang Airport, is a dated facility. It was built in the 1960s, but because of its proximity to the city centre, anywhere between 30 to 40 kilometres from KL town, it enables a lot of opportunities for this airport to be rejuvenated even further. Currently, a lot of cargo operators are operating from that particular airport, and turboprop airlines, particularly Firefly and Malindo, is also operating out of it. Prior to the COVID pandemic, it is a rather vibrant airport. But since the pandemic has hit us, and because of the MCO being in place in one shape or another, it's pretty much nothing that is currently happening there. And of course, this doesn't mean that we can't not stop about talking about the rejuvenation process of the airport per se, largely because Malaysia has big ambitions to push ahead with the rejuvenation of not just the Subang Airport, but the Malaysian airspace industry altogether. One of the items that needs to be discussed is, of course, the MRO element of the aerospace industry. So here, to unpack all of this and more, are my guests, Dato Nonee Ashirin, Dato Muhammad Radzi, the Chairman of Global Turbine Asia Sdn Berhad, as well as Encik Luqman Muhammad Azmi, the Group Chief Operating Officer of Malaysia Airlines Berhad. How are you, ladies and gentlemen?
Assalamualaikum, Encik Ibrahim, Encik Luqman. Alhamdulillah, we are doing well. We are, working from home to a certain extent under the MCO condition.
And of course, Dato Nonee, let's start with you. The aerospace industry is taking a slump. It is a very tough industry to operate in. Even before the pandemic, not many airlines are making money. Cargo operators, the same situation as well. But because of the pandemic, it's near zero, in fact negative for most airlines, and some airlines are in trouble altogether and are closing shop. Because of this, there's a lot of conversation that needs to be had about how to keep this very vital industry alive. Everybody knows that cargo is important, and when the pandemic is over, if the pandemic is over, people will continue to travel again. But the idea of keeping this profitable is the big question. So how do you imagine the Malaysian global aerospace industry is going to take shape and going to move forward post-pandemic?
Ibrahim, that's a big question. I think the members of the aerospace industry are constantly engaging each other in order to find what is the best way forward and to anticipate in the pandemic crisis, a novel crisis like this. It's a worldwide experience for everybody. We are not spared. And of course, we have identified, everybody has identified, travel is hit, airline is hit, tourism, and jobs are at stake. And we are not spared. Dari segi aerospace industry, memang kita pun terpaksa merancang. Therefore, for me, I am coming not as an operator like MAS. I'm more on the supporting the operators, which is the maintenance, repair, and overhaul. We have to keep our capability going in order so that we don't lose the right people. We do not have support businesses going out. When there is a pent-up demand, when people will start traveling, inshallah, because the vaccines are being rolled out, and you can see evidently that in Europe, there are people already traveling. So we just have to, go through the storm in order to have good weather. And I believe that this is nothing quick, and COVID is here to stay.
Yeah, hang on. So when I had the conversation with the Group CEO of Malaysia Airlines Berhad, Captain Izham, he was talking about the airline industry overview. He wasn't talking so much about the aviation industry per se, because I guess because it's MAB and not the AHB, for instance. And because of this, there's a lot of rethinking about how an airline operator like Malaysia Airlines Berhad needs to move forward. And Dato Nonee, let's put a pin in your conversation. I just want to move to Luqman. Luqman, what do you think about moving ahead with cargo, with MRO, in the shape and form of doing it out of Subang Airport? Why must it be Subang Airport and not, say, for instance, KLIA?
Okay, thank you, Ibrahim. First and foremost, thank you for having me in this show. For us, as you're aware, passenger business really took a slump compared to 2019. I think we're only operating around 25% of pre-COVID capacity. So therefore, an organization like us, we have to refocus on non-passenger related revenue stream. So two in particular, the cargo business, which are doing very, very well right now. And we are quite fortunate because we do have our own freighter aircraft, as well as we're using the passenger aircraft as cargo as well. And we are also focusing on third-party MRO. We are seeing this demand, especially during this crisis. There's opportunity for us to focus on the non-passenger revenue stream. Two biggest among them are the cargo and the MRO business.
When we prefaced the show, we were talking about Subang being a KL airport. Does this bring about any ideas on how both of you see the potential of Subang Airport? Maybe Dato Nonee?
Well, to tell you the truth, when they wanted to redevelop Subang as an MRO or aerospace hub, we were one of the first to be there, Global Turbine Asia. So we invested into the rebuilding, rejuvenating the immigration building that was run down. And when we started there about 8 years ago, and now the area is totally changed. And there are new factories being built. I believe Subang has been a mark for aerospace companies, even for foreign investors. So I strongly recommend that we stay put in having Subang area as the MRO or aviation hub for the country. It's only thing that the government should look at is not the only thing, and the main thing that I would reckon would be getting the infrastructure up, getting more traffic. A lot of companies have tried going out of Subang, but I can tell you that a lot of aerospace companies would prefer to be in this hub.
Well, you touched on a very important point, which is investment. And as we have touched on earlier, this is a very dated facility. There's a lot of items that needs to be refurbished, replaced, renovated, in fact, rebuilt altogether. And those are the items that companies like WCT Holdings think that they can do with this 70-year reconcession plan that they put forward. My question is, what is the argument for the government to step in and try to invest our money, Dato Nonee, Luqman, your money, my money, all of our money into this? What makes it important for the government to do the job instead of some private company?
No, I think when it comes to the industry perspective, we are very clear on the way forward. We know what is needed in the ecosystem, and we do engage the government in order to understand how to keep afloat. You imagine that aerospace industry is contributing a huge GDP for the country, and our target is to achieve 55 billion ringgit by 2050, which I think the crisis has actually affected, but we know that we can come back to the numbers because of the pent-up demand. Now, what I'm trying to say is we are a very, very important sector for the country, high value sector. Therefore, the government is engaging us. Yes, the government plays a role, and yes, we are ready to be having a two-way discussion, and I believe it's happening right now. Therefore, I sincerely hope that whatever is planned for the Subang is for the tenants and for the future of the industry that has been in that vicinity for the longest time.
Well, there is also that issue of demand. And while Subang may seem to have a lot of ingredients for it to be a very vibrant hub, conditions are not permitting right now. But at the same time, one would argue that this is the best time to move ahead with such planning, particularly when traffic is slow and therefore disruption to day-to-day services and operations can be better managed. Do you think that this is a good time to move ahead with this plan that the government is right now thinking about? Maybe Luqman, you can pick this up about how MAB can come into the picture and make this work for the Subang Airport.
Thank you, Ibrahim. As you know, that one portion of our focus is MRO, and KLIA have come to almost 80% usage of our 2 hangars in KLIA, and Subang has readily available capacity that we think we can refurbish. We have a lot of interest on third-party businesses that we can get the funding so that we can resuscitate the hangars in Subang, and we can act that as a complementing to the KLIA business, right? And I think as an ecosystem, Subang has been earmarked to focus on aerospace technology, could be aerospace manufacturing, MRO among them, and especially on general aviation, being a few city airport around this region. I think it has a lot of potential to develop and expand in terms of general aviation MRO businesses as well.
And of course, Malaysia. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. If I may add, because we're moving towards all the digitization and robotics and whatnot, I do believe the city airport has to stay, and there will be a refocusing of investment into air mobility to support passengers. So these are the key areas, new areas that perhaps the government should consider moving forward, Malaysia moving forward in terms of the technology. So yes, we do have to maintain Subang as such to be that conduit for new technologies to come in.
Fantastic. We'll go for a short break before we continue our conversation with folks in the aviation industry. We'll be right back after these messages.
Maka lebih sukar untuk COVID menjangkit kita.
Untuk tempoh 2 minggu ini duduk di rumah. Kalau kita boleh laksanakan KKP Kendiri dan keluarga,
saya kira insya-Allah kita boleh berjaya. Akhirnya kita menang.
Perang COVID-19 masih belum berakhir. Dalam kita berusaha memutuskan rantaian wabak ini, kita jangan terpedaya dengan virus maklumat palsu. Simak fakta melalui www.astroawani.com atau aplikasi Astro Awani. Teruskan berdisiplin, ratakan lengkungan pandemik ini.
The third wave of COVID-19 has taken us by storm. There's no room to take anything lightly. Everyone must follow all the steps to stop the spread of COVID-19. Social distancing, face mask, follow these steps, this SOP with the utmost discipline. Together, we can flatten the curve.
Kini berwajah baru.
Ini pula susulan khas pesawat Back Air di Kazakhstan. Pesawat berkenaan dilaporkan tergelincir 2 kali.
Notifikasi berita terkini dan navigasi mudah. Podcast dikemas kini dengan berita dan program.
Rebirth, Reformasi, Resistance and Hope.
Serta video tanpa had dengan scroll tanpa henti. Buat turun aplikasi baru Astro Awani sekarang.
Semua yang terjadi adalah berita, tetapi tiada siapa yang boleh bawakan yang terkini dan tergempar seperti kami.
Dilihat hanya memberi wang tanpa matlamat yang tepat. Dia tidak melakukan apa-apa kesalahan.
Untuk mendapatkan jawapan.
Thanks for staying on with us. I have with me Dato Nonee Ashirin, Dato Ahmad, the Chairman of Global Turbine Asia, as well as the Group COO, Chief Operating Officer of Malaysia Airlines Berhad, Cik Luqman, Azmi. Maybe we start with Cik Luqman here. Let's talk a little bit more about how the MRO rebuilding of Subang Airport by MAB is part and parcel of that bigger agenda that MAB is moving ahead when it comes to revitalizing MAB as a company, particularly in the recovery stage of post-pandemic period.
Thank you. I think as I mentioned earlier, we in dire need of capacity, and we are seeing for the next 2 years there's a lot of movement, especially in terms of airline preparing to return aircraft into service, changing of ownership of aircraft, as well as increasing demand for part-out businesses and for older aircraft to retire. So these are among the business case for Subang that we can see that will be complementing KLIA in the MRO sector, as well as a growth of, even if you look at the next 5 years, we are looking at the CAGR growth of our business aviation as well as commercial aviation around 9%, right? So I think if we don't do anything about KLIA and we have asset in Subang that we can make use of, I think that's the best approach, especially from Malaysia Airlines, and that would be our focus for the next few years.
Dato Nonee, you've been in this industry for quite a bit, and because of the fact that you are both a player as well as a person that has been doing this for quite some time, how do you see Malaysia investing rather smartly in terms of rejuvenating this particular asset? I know it's very hard for us to contest the downside of Subang, other than the fact that it's old, but the fact that the collaboration that you might have, particularly, for instance, with the state government, the ability for it to grow even further because of the proximity of the demand. But the big question is money. It's a lot of money, I can imagine. So a private company like yourself, like Global Turbine, I'm pretty sure that you guys are spending smartly. But the question, can the question be said about the government as well?
Well, Ibrahim, I mean, we know that there's a lot of money that's gone to fight the pandemic. You know, it's for the people. And it's been tough for many countries. We are not singled out. But of course, being from the point of view of industry players, not just aerospace, we have to be there in order to, when all this blows over, people need hope. People will need, you know, enough about having sad stories. We got to tell them that there will be jobs. There will be something for the kids to look forward to, because everything is just haywire. I mean, personally, when I look at it from a parent's perspective, you know, rejuvenation, yes, I think we need to go engage the stakeholders, get the right formula, because it's going to be post-crisis, and a realignment of thoughts. And what I found is that people come together in the times of crisis. Before, we kind of went on silos. But now, for example, today, I sit on the Malaysian Aerospace Industry Association. So all of us spoke about the problem of logistics. You know, yes, I'm sure Malaysia Airlines with the cargo is doing fine. But when, for us on the other side of the fence, we find the cost is escalating. We find that we couldn't send parts out, you know, according to the timelines. And we need government to feel for us, to assist us, meaning that perhaps before you have some budget for marketing, maybe you can assist in terms of the real pain points for the industry in order that we survive. So rejuvenation, yes, but for us to still be there to survive is something that the government has done, and I hope that will continue engaging us, industry players, because it's not just aerospace, and I'm sure there are other many sectors which are also supporting us, mind you. So we need to consolidate, and we need to be engaging. This is what I think. When we engage each other, we understand as a whole the information, real-time information helps. And of course, having guys who have networking with people around the world to exchange that information gives us the confidence. When we have the confidence, we know where to invest. So information, real information, accurate information is very vital for us. Equally, I think we need to stay afloat. We need to tell everybody that Malaysia is the best place to invest, best value for aerospace industry, and we are going to make sure that the skills are there, the young people will be educated, the human resource development will be realigned, reskilled in order to support this endeavor.
One item that needs to be discussed is a key stakeholder that is not part of this conversation, which is Malaysia Airport Holdings Berhad. And perhaps in our subsequent conversation, we will have them on. But while they're not here, perhaps both of you could give your opinion about how Malaysia Airport Holdings Berhad, MHB, can work this towards the profitability of owning such a very lucrative asset in the form of Subang Airport. Cik Luqman?
Okay, I'll start first. I think the advantage of MHB driving the activities in Subang, because they have interest in both airports, KLIA and Subang, and the development have to be complementing each other rather than at opposite direction. And I think they have experience in KLIA that they can really properly plan Subang, so that the intent to develop the aerospace hub for the nation, being the number one aerospace nation in Southeast Asia, in regards to Blueprint 2030, can be achieved if we have one single driver driving it. And being the airport operators, I think they are in the right position to help to drive that. Dato?
Well, I guess I am a client of Malaysia Airports for a long time, so they have the experience. Perhaps now that they have somebody else who's trying to propose, it's good to understand what is the current needs. Maybe what was okay 10 years ago, and with the exchanges that we have, I am sure there will be airport improvement, there will be MRO centers, that we have to have the latest facility, and I believe the right people should do the job for us. And moving forward, when we have new types of aircraft, I don't know, perhaps we can have helicopter, air taxis back and forth. So you need people who knows how to plan. It's not just about the development, the people, traffic, but whatever the industries have done there, it's for their own longevity and continuity, business continuity.
When we talk about these items, right, business continuity, efficiency, generally speaking, the private sector is a little bit more efficient than the government. And while the government can play the role as regulator, there's a lot of questions on whether or not the government should be in business altogether. Then now the question is, there is a private entity that wants to come to the picture and do this. I understand that this is a national asset, this is a very important infrastructure, but it's losing money, and there's a lot of money that needs to be involved when it comes to rebuilding it. What would be some of the ideas when we think about the efficiency that MHB, MAB and the likes can bring to the table as opposed to a private entity?
I'll start with just on the MRO portion, Ibrahim. I think one advantage that we have, of course, we have our own base load that we can ensure that we can ensure the business is sustainable. We have good partnership among Oneworld and among other airlines that we interact with, as well as our track record. If you recall, in our good days when Subang was among the top MRO center in this region, we were handling close to 100 over airlines then, right? So I think with experience that we have, I think we are in the right position to continue to give our thoughts and ideas and direction in helping to redevelop Subang Airport.
There is this big item that we need to also talk about, the relationship between Subang Airport with KLIA and KLIA 2. KLIA, of course, services the main passenger, of course, cargo traffic when it comes to Malaysia. There's also that element of retail, particularly in KLIA 2. But of course, the preface here is that the pandemic has taken a hit on this industry altogether. Do you feel that Subang Airport needs to be more than just an MRO hub, but also start to think about retail and perhaps low-cost airline as well?
Okay, can I add something here? Because we've been staying in the Subang area for the longest time. Yes, I do believe that we need new things coming in, because it needs to be robust. Even when it comes to having lunch, we're quite limited. So any development or activities, events, it adds to the ecosystem in Subang. And people are there to support. We have thousands and thousands of workers, and people will, if it's a nice area, it will be populated, then we will have the right manpower. They don't have to travel too far out, you know. So infrastructure, connectivity, a new development, why not? But it has to be taken into account that it doesn't affect the aerospace industry that has been there. And I believe this is what we need as well. I can tell you, Ibrahim, it's the same restaurants that I've been to, and I hope we have more restaurants once we are out of the MCO. But it's also the additional business that we can attract, not just specifically on MRO, the supply chain as well.
Dato Nonee, final words before we postpone or adjourn this particular interview?
Well, it's just that we hope that the government will do more engagement with the industry players to get our feedback. We thank all the stakeholders for hearing us out during the crisis. And as one of the industry players in the MRO, I give my word that we will work hard in order to make sure that we stay in business, we find the right growth, we find the right partners, and make sure that Malaysia stays competitive in the sector.
Luqman?
As Dato mentioned, I think this is a good time for us Malaysians especially to collaborate and to harness on our advantages in developing the aerospace industry for the nation. And we should be working together in putting our country as the aerospace industry hub within this region. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Of course, Astro AWANI will continue to cover the ongoing developments of the Sultan Abdul Aziz Shah Airport, better known as Subang Airport. Just stick with us on this particular piece of news. And in the meantime, we would have to adjourn, as I mentioned earlier, this particular interview. That was Dato Nonee Ashirin, Dato Muhammad Radzi, Chairman of Global Turbine Asia's Berhad, as well as Luqman Muhammad Azmi, the Group Chief Operating Officer of Malaysia Airlines Berhad. Until then, thanks very much for watching and goodbye.